you see when you see that picture?
I see that picture, and many see it as you would be walking in to darkness. I see it the complete opposite way. I'm walking out of the darkness through the archway, which, by the way, God is the keystone of that archway, into a new life.
And the light, what significance is that light?
Those lights are some people refer to them as navigational beacons. It's like when I spoke earlier in one of my talks, I spoke about guiding the sick and suffering individual to the light. I mean, this is really and truly if you can envision it, someone being in the dark and you're calling for them and telling them, look for the light, look for the arch, look for the light, and then you can both proceed from there.
And the fact that the archway is made out of stone, or not even brick. I mean, that's ancient stone.
It is ancient stone. And when I look at stone, or I hear the word, specifically when I hear the word rock, there's one thing that comes to mind first, and that's my rock, which is God. And my Bible tells me that all things are possible through Him. When I'm standing on the rock and I'm with Him, all things have been possible and continue to be possible. Some people are like, well, how do you describe it so well? How is it that you're so passionate about the rock and about the darkness and about God being the keystone, to the arch? It's part of me. There's no pre-thought. This is part of me and what has been created.
For those who don't have that support from the people that they really want it from, friends and family, what do you say to them?
You're saying that want the support.
Right. What has filled that void for you?
There are so many things that have filled that void for me. First things first, I need to recognize and to verbalize where my relationship is with my family. We're friendly, we interact, sometimes are great, sometimes are not so great. Life ebbs and flows. But as far as my real and truly closeness to them, I don't have that. And there was a time in my life where that was upsetting. But today it's not, for multiple reasons. The first is, live and let live was ingrained in me. Live and let live. I'm going to be 39 years old. From what the people around me are telling me, I'm doing a lot of right things right. I've got a lot of support from people I've just met. And I don't strive for their recognition anymore. Today, I'm able to say, I'm going to live and let live. If they're going to catch up or want to catch up, want to know about what I'm doing and where I'm going and how I'm doing it, they know how to ask questions. And they surely know how to make statements. Surely. So it's all, on an individual basis. But I would say, if you're someone that has their family within arm's length, humble yourself enough to ask for help. for me, it was God that I had asked. For people, it's different. But how powerful that could be, linking up with your family members and walking together on the journey of recovery. You know, being on both sides as a patient and a caretaker, I cannot begin to tell about the value and the power surrounding it of someone being your rock for that doctor's appointment. Someone getting you when you're all filled with fear and anxiety and just riddled with emotions and unstable. Somebody that's there that's a rock to you.
Going back to this picture, so you see it coming out of the darkness, going into the light. Talk through that support system for people who see it as, I'm in the light, and if I'm a rock for this person, it means I got to go into the darkness.
One would think that it's scary. Right? The best approaches are subtle. The best and most effective approaches that I've seen are subtle. Okay? It all depends how deep in the darkness this individual is. Because if they're like right at the cusp, maybe you just get them a card that day that says, I love you for who you are. I'm here for you. Oh, and by the way, I found a couple meetings that we can go to together. Mental health support groups in the area. Okay? The way I see it, there's a good chance. You know, fears are going to be overcome on both parts, and that they can take that step in a forward direction. A person all the way in the back, that's the biggest challenge. Because I remember when my mental illness and my alcoholism and addiction were hitting that apex. And it was not a good feeling at all. See, there were people out here that had willingness to help, right? But I kept myself isolated and buried so far back there. Because one of my mindsets was, if I was all the way in the back and isolated, you couldn't comment on my condition. You couldn't comment on my activities. I spent years all the way in the back. Just 2 weeks, a little phone call, hey, how are you? You know, this, that, and the other. You know, when I have that moment of sanity, clarity, or both. But getting to that individual, it's going to take a lot of work. Fortunately, I've seen the solution in action. Let's say Barbara's not suffering with mental illness, never has. Never has been impacted by alcoholism and addiction. Our friend Vin is all the way deep, dark in a hole. She's scared for him. She knows he's there. He won't communicate. How do I go in and get him? There's a strong likelihood that Barbara cannot go all the way in and help him. What you need is someone who's a reference point. Someone who for that day is in remission of bipolar 1 disorder, that has recovered from alcoholism and addiction. My 12-Step Fellowship, the book that I read often, that provides the clear-cut directions for recovery, clearly states that at times it's nearly impossible for someone who's a medical professional or a loved one to gain the confidence. It is impossible, nearly impossible, to gain the confidence of that individual that's all the way isolated, deep, dark in the back. But you send in an individual who has recovered from what they're suffering with, and whether it's mental illness, alcoholism, or both, they've got the best chance that I've ever seen to walk all the way back into the isolation because they've been there before. There's nothing to fear. I've done this firsthand. There's nothing to fear, you know? As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil because I know He is beside me. So I've walked in with Him, with my God, and put my hand out and literally picked the individual up, put them in my truck, and drove them into the area where Barbara is. And then helped point them in further direction and worked with their loved one. So now it's 3 people working together on one problem. Effective? Very effective. Is there a guarantee? No. Because that woman that I went into the darkness and pulled out of the abandoned junkyard in the back roads in North Carolina and got into my truck and drove out to the safe zone, her loved ones, myself, provided her a tremendous amount, a wealth of information. Okay? She, self-will, chose to go back and live with drug dealers. I haven't heard from her since. But that's a negative case. There are a whole lot of positive cases I could also share. So there it is. Never go, as a loved one, never go into the darkness alone. To retrieve a loved one. Empower yourself. Find someone that's been there. And there are so many support groups that are out there, whether it's the National Institute of Mental Health, whether it's the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. You know, they're out there. They're available. We have the internet today. It is 2018. I can push a button, talk into my phone, and get results in seconds. The excuses are less and less, and the support is available at our fingertips.